Top 10 times American racism found out it was black owned. There's a very specific sound racism makes when it realizes it miscalculated. It's not a scream, it's not an apology. It's that quiet, confused pause where somebody suddenly realizes the rules they were relying on don't apply anymore. For centuries in America, racism has operated under one lazy assumption. This must belong to us, the land, the business, the building, the authority. And because of that assumption, racists felt comfortable disrespecting, harassing, threatening, or outright abusing people, right up until paperwork, law, or history stepped in and said, actually, no, these moments matter because they expose how racism relies on ownership fantasies. They also matter because black ownership has always been more widespread than America likes to admit. Some of these stories are famous, some are buried, all of them end the same way: confusion, rage, silence, and that beautiful moment when racism finds out it walked into the wrong house. Number 10, 1838, Cincinnati, Ohio, Dumas boarding house. In the 1830s, Cincinnati racists regularly harassed black residents they believed were squatters. One white mob targeted a black boarding house they assumed was operating illegally. They smashed windows, threatened violence, and demanded removal. Then they found out the owner was William Whipper, a wealthy black abolitionist and businessman, not a tenant, not a servant, the owner. Whipper had the deed, the permits, and the law on his side. The mob didn't know what to do with that information. Local officials were forced to intervene, not to remove Whipper, but to protect his property rights. Racists expected eviction. They got paperwork. The attack fizzled into embarrassment. The building stayed. Whipper expanded his businesses afterward. Racism learned an early lesson. Deeds talk louder than slurs. Number 9, 1901, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Greenwood, before they burned it. Before 1921, white Tulsa residents regularly disrespected black businesses in Greenwood. They treated shop owners like tenants borrowing space. Greenwood was not borrowed. It was owned by black doctors, lawyers, bankers, and merchants. When white officials talked about cleaning it up, they weren't talking about crime. They were talking about envy. Greenwood's property ownership was airtight. That's why destruction became the tactic. When racists realized they couldn't legally take it, they burned it. Ownership didn't disappear. It was targeted. The violence itself was proof Greenwood wasn't dependent. It was dominant. Racism didn't discover black ownership here. It panicked because of it. And that panic wrote itself into history. Number 8, 1915, Waco, Texas, A.C. Allen's Hotel. In early 20th century Texas, white travelers routinely harassed black hotel staff. One such group tried it at a downtown Waco hotel, assuming it was white-owned. They spoke recklessly. They demanded management. Management arrived, and it was A.C. Allen, a black businessman who owned the hotel outright. Allen didn't raise his voice. He raised the deed. The tone changed immediately. Suddenly, everyone remembered manners. The guests either complied or left. No sheriff was needed. Racism backed down because ownership removed its leverage. Allen continued operating successfully for years. Sometimes the most powerful rebuttal is a calm man holding legal documents. Number 7, 1939, New York City, Madam C.J. Walker's headquarters. White suppliers regularly tried to strong-arm black beauty businesses in Harlem. One group attempted to bully their way into pricing control at the Walker Company offices. They assumed the business was symbolic, not structural. Then they learned it was founded and owned by Madam C.J. Walker, one of the wealthiest women in America at the time. Not wealthy for a black woman, wealthy, period. Contracts were airtight. Lawyers were already paid. The tone shifted from threats to negotiation. Racism hates discovering it's late to the power structure. Walker's empire employed thousands. The visitors left humbled and poorer. Capitalism doesn't care about your bias. Number 6, 1954, Prince Edward County, Virginia, black-owned land after Brown. After Brown versus Board, white officials tried to intimidate black families into selling land. They assumed ownership was fragile. One attempt targeted farmland owned by James and Irene Farmer, prominent civil rights leaders. Officials implied seizure. The farmers responded with titles, tax records, and lawyers. The land was untouchable. The county backed off quietly. Racism relies on fear. Ownership neutralizes it. The land remained in black hands. The threat evaporated. Paper beats intimidation every time. Number 5, 1968, Memphis, Tennessee, black-owned funeral homes. After MLK's assassination, white agitators attempted to disrupt black funeral homes organizing services. They assumed these spaces were marginal operations. They were not. Many were owned by black families for generations. One incident involved R.S. Lewis and Sons Funeral Home, fully black-owned and legally protected. Police had to enforce the owner's rights against white protesters. The irony was thick. Racists tried to intimidate grief and ran into ownership law. The services proceeded. The protesters left. Even hatred pauses when confronted with authority it doesn't control. Number 4, 1972, Atlanta, Georgia, black-owned banks. White contractors attempted to pressure loan decisions at Citizens Trust Bank, assuming black banking was symbolic. They were wrong. The bank was black-owned, federally chartered, and legally untouchable. Executives declined politely. The pressure turned to frustration. Racists were unused to financial denial without leverage. The bank continued funding black home ownership. Racism hates when capital says no. Ownership turned insult into irrelevance. Number 3, 1985, Washington, D.C., Ben's Chili Bowl. White developers repeatedly tried to push out local black businesses. Ben's Chili Bowl was assumed to be sentimental, not secure. When pressure escalated, the Alima family revealed decades of ownership and political connections. The city backed Ben's, not the developers. The restaurant stayed, the community won. Racism learned that legacy plus paperwork is lethal. Ben's still stands. The assumptions didn't. Number 2, 1997, Hilton Head, South Carolina, Gullah Geechee landowners. Developers routinely tried to seize coastal land from Gullah families. One attempt targeted land owned by Josephine Wright, a black elder whose family had owned the property since the Civil War. Developers assumed intimidation would work. Wright produced deeds older than their companies. Lawsuits followed. Developers lost. Wright stayed. Racism underestimated generational ownership. Again, number 1, 2020, Louisville, Kentucky, black-owned homes and stand your ground assumptions. During protests, white vigilantes assumed neighborhoods were unprotected. They approached properties thinking intimidation would go unchecked. Several discovered the homeowners were black and legally armed on property they owned outright. Police had to intervene to protect the owners. Racism expected submission. It found boundaries. Ownership changed the entire equation. The tone shifted instantly. The assumptions collapsed. The lesson was modern, legal, and undeniable. Racism still hasn't recovered from learning black ownership is not theoretical. Racism survives on assumptions. Ownership kills assumptions. Every one of these moments reveals the same truth. Disrespect is loudest, where racists believe power belongs to them by default. When that illusion breaks, so does their confidence. Black ownership has never been rare. It has simply been inconvenient to acknowledge. These stories aren't just about property. They're about control, dignity, and the sudden realization that the rules were never on racism's side to begin with. Paperwork doesn't argue, deeds don't flinch, and history keeps a ledger. The real shock was never that black people owned it. The shock was that racism believed we didn't. Follow Marcus Ferrell live on ClickBaity Political Thirst Trap and Marcus Ferrell live on TikTok, YouTube, Fanbase, and Substack.